Hey, Mike, it's Evan Shubin.
Hey, Evan, how are you?
I'm doing just fine, thanks. How's it going?
It's going great. Thanks for joining. Glad we're able to connect.
Absolutely.
So, to get things going here, Evan, I did a little bit of research on what you're involved in, and it's so super cool. You're involved in a couple different things. It looks like we we got connected through BJ over at Trade Show Logic,
Yes, yes, that's exactly right. She liked one of your posts with the 16 lessons um,
right?
for startups, and I thought it was a great post. And anyone whose posts I feel are strong like that, I reached out and said, let's get together, see what type of common ground we have.
Awesome. No, that's great. Appreciate that. Um, if you wouldn't mind, just a quick, background on you and uh, and we're going to talk about Game Gym and esports. I'm really excited about that because I want to learn more about esports. But if you could just give me like a quick, 30-second on you.
Sure. So I'm a serial entrepreneur. I launched my first company 20 years ago, Results Now, which is a consulting firm that still exists, essentially to sell my hours and my wife's hours to other companies and that need help with senior level sales, marketing, strategy. I've launched my wife and I have launched two companies on our own since then. We've been directly involved in, oh boy, now we're up to 14 total launches or startups,
Wow.
early stage companies that we've gotten involved in one way or another. And sometimes that's cash and not, our hours. Sometimes it's hours and no cash. It just depends on the deal. My preference is both, to accumulate equity, giving cash and giving our hours in order to accumulate equity in the companies that we work with.
Great. And so you've been doing that for about 20 years now?
Yes. Really started, I mean, I was involved in some launches in the trade show business as a staffer before that.
Yeah.
I worked on a variety of different trade shows and the organizations that ran them, and we launched shows from time to time. So that total count of 14 includes a couple that were even earlier than 20 years ago. But 20 years ago is sort of when I mark the time of starting as an entrepreneur and a company launch, a launch dog, as it were.
Right. That's launch dog. I like that. That's good. Yeah, I haven't done as many as you, but I started out about 1990 out of college. Got a job selling computers from Microwave. You remember them?
Hmm.
And they were like a retail, business-oriented computer shop. Essentially, they were selling. Uh, I remember selling box of diskettes, 3.3.5 inch discs for $80 a box. And I remember the conversation talking to the owner, like, why would we price these at $85? They're really, the cost is like $5. Well, it's retail. We need to mark up. So I only worked with them for maybe a year, and I branched off and started my own thing with a couple of guys, and we we're basically a clone of Microwave. We were doing some retail and then business systems, selling in. We were building computers. We had a store, build computers, put in networks, software, did networking, cabling, all that. And this was in the early '90s when businesses were just getting, you know, computerized, really.
You are a
Um,
value added reseller. I don't know if
exactly.
they use that term anymore, but that was big for VARs, was big for a while. Nice little
Yep.
niche.
Yeah. Yeah. We had a lot of fun with that. But I was, I was 21 years old. I knew nothing about finances and, how to run a business and keep it profitable. We did okay, but I ended up actually getting a job at HSBC, which ended up being real nice. And then went on to do those other things. Um, but let's talk about um, Game Gym and esports. So I did a bit of research on Game Gym. It's a really cool concept. Um, why don't you give me the summary of the company?
Absolutely. So, Josh Afkin is the founder of Game Gym, and he was a scholarship swimmer at North Carolina. So he grew up in the Maryland suburbs of Washington D.C., Montgomery County, and he went through that whole process as a swimmer. And there's an enormous amount of support for any of these after-school sports that that exist right now. Is swimming, soccer, martial arts, football, all of those traditional physical sports activities. There's a big support system. When Josh got out of college, he loved video games and esports, and he spent some time with Monumental, which is the company that owns the Wizards and the Capitals and the Mystics, as well as the boy, it's not the Verizon Center anymore. Whatever the arena is called, it keeps changing. But they're a huge, traditional sports conglomerate here in the DC area. And then he also spent some time at Bethesda Softworks, which is a software publisher, a games publisher here in the DC area, and also for Geico, running some of their esports activations. And after that, he founded Game Gym, and the idea was to add some structure to the whole esports scene to help kids, really from as early as they were interested in practical terms. Our in-person summer camps, when we get back to them, start in the third and fourth grade range and then go through middle school and high school and into college. And the idea is to maximize the path for those kids, whether they want to be casual gamers, whether they think they're good enough to maybe earn a scholarship in college, which is becoming more and more commonplace, whether they think they might even be good enough to make money and go pro in esports. We want to help them to maximize that path. So we've got a whole certification program for coaches. It's a full 2-day program where they get certified to participate as coaches in our summer camps and our afternoon programs. And my wife and I were first and foremost happy customers of Game Gym. We have 2 teenage boys, and they both participated in various Game Gym programs over the past couple of years, both the after-school programs during the school year and the summer camps. And my older son continues to be a counselor as a League of Legends coach with our summer camps. What we saw was that done correctly, esports, and the difference between esports and video games is esports is when it's team-based. 5v5 or 6v6 or 3v3. Esports can really teach kids a lot about leadership, communication, strategy. All of those things are real. It's not just pounding on the keyboard. It's not just pounding on the controller. And when there is structure and a certified coach, and when kids are given information about a healthier approach. It's not just 5 games playing straight. You've got to take time out to stretch. You've got to take time out, to eat well, and you've got to do injury prevention as well as injury treatment if it gets that bad. When all of that is done well, that esports can really be a very valuable aspect of someone's life, all the way through the kids, like I said, from 3rd grade up through 12th grade and into college.
So what's an example of some of the most popular esports out there that are being played or, either professionally or kids are looking at?
Yeah, so I think probably the top 3 or 4, League of Legends, which is a 5-on-5. It's kind of like capture the flag with superpowers. You go through a draft where each team chooses 5 characters for one for each of the people on the team, and they've got they need to get to a certain target within the enemy territory. So that's one game. Rocket League is one of my favorites to watch. It's basically soccer, but you're controlling a car, and that car has flight abilities. It's got rocket boosters and that sort of thing, and you use the car to hit the ball into the goal. So that one's a lot of fun. It's very easy. It's easy to watch because it's soccer. It's easy to play. Overwatch is 6v6, very, very popular game, and they're also, you've got various weapons and superpowers, and your job is to move sort of, it's like the equivalent of an 18-wheeler or, or a trailer. You've got to move it along a track through contested territory to various checkpoints that get you to the goal. So those are I'd say those are probably the three that are the most popular. There are a bunch of others, of course, and always new ones coming out. But right now, I think those are probably the top three.
And so these are these are group games that anyone can play, but there's also a pro level. Is that right? Where like
Yes,
there's competitions
yes.
and actual people get paid to be professional gamers, right?
Yeah, so this may surprise you, but two stories. The first story is one of my son's friends, right out of high school, 150 grand a year to play League of Legends.
Wow.
They've got a group house in L.A. with a coach and a trainer and a chef, and he's at the entry level, if you will. He didn't go to college. He just started playing League of Legends at the pro level. Another kid, a little bit older, I think 22 or 23, $2.3 million a year to play League of Legends.
No kidding.
There are more than 500 colleges and universities in this country that offer partial or full scholarships to play esports at the college level. UC Irvine has full scholarships. Harrisburg University has full scholarships for multiple games, 5 League of Legends players or 7 in some cases, to make a team of 5 Overwatch players. Ohio State has invested $16 million for an esports major, an academic major in esports. They've invested $2 million in an 80-seat arena where kids can go and play esports.
Which university is this?
Ohio State.
No kidding.
So clearly, one of the biggest, obviously, in traditional sports, and they've made a significant investment in esports. And then the last statistic I'll give you is that the League of Legends international championship, so the World Championship in League of Legends, was broadcast on Twitch, and 200 million people watched it.
Amazing.
200 million. That's more than March Madness and the Super Bowl combined. Yes, from a worldwide standpoint, from a national standpoint, this is an enormous market. And someone a lot smarter than me said to me, if you're going to invest in a business, you want to invest in three things. You try to check up to 3 boxes, right? People, markets, and technology. And we loved what Josh had done with Game Jam. We loved his vision. And more importantly, no offense to Josh, we saw the market. We saw the size of this market and how it was growing. And this is this is really just the beginning for esports. We at Game Jam, we have launched a Mid-Atlantic Esports Conference. It's a college conference for schools in the D.C., Maryland, and Virginia area. We have 13 schools participating in competitions. We have a job fair and a career. We have a job fair and a college fair, and a high school combine with recruiting and college, the ability for the colleges to show what they offer. And I believe that one day, people will be watching collegiate esports competitions the way that they currently watch college basketball and college football. It's already there at the pro level that, the viewership is significant. And we're building a fan base here in the DC area, and there are leagues, there are collegiate leagues and conferences all over the country in esports, and some are based on traditional athletic conferences, and some are, that have popped up to serve the needs of either a region or a specific group of schools.
Right. So I want to ask you about Game Jam specifically, but before that, since we're kind of focused in this podcast about innovation, right? Let's talk a little bit, if you wouldn't mind, about how, what happened in the video gaming world that essentially created this whole new market of esports. I mean, this didn't exist. What? I don't even know, 5 years ago? Like there had to be some fundamental shift that caused this entire, new industry to pop up out of nowhere, essentially.
Yeah, so I'm not an expert in the history of esports and what happened, 5 years ago or 10 years ago. I really came upon this 3 years ago as an angry parent who wasn't
Yeah,
happy with the amount of time that my boys were spending on esports, and I've been converted to clearly someone with religion about esports. But what
yeah,
I can tell you is, that you've got a combination of the gaming platforms, whether it's PC, connected PCs via the internet or connected controllers, through a PlayStation or an Xbox, and the internet itself. And so the ability for team-based um, esports to happen, and then the games just developing and getting better and
yeah.
finding that market. When I watch my boys play, they've all got their headsets on, they're all talking nonstop and texting back and forth. There's a platform called Discord, which is essentially a whole communications platform for
Mhm.
gamers. It's like Slack in the business world, for example. There's there's several different platforms, including Battlefy, for competitions, for hosting competitions. The kids don't need to be the gamers don't need to be in the same location. They don't need to be
Mhm.
in the same desk at the same location. And the teams that the other team that they're playing against, they don't need to be all in the same space and playing. And the two teams don't need to be face to face. It can be exciting when that happens, and there are plenty of live tournaments. And I know we'll
Right.
get back to that post pandemic. But I think that's what really changed was a combination of bandwidth and the
Yeah.
availability of computers and consoles to kids that wanted to use them to play esports, and then the games emerging. And I'm sure people that have been involved longer than me in esports will say, well, there are also these three key factors that I just don't know about. But that, I think, are the macro factors that
I would
that
agree.
contributed to the explosion.
I remember watching my son play. I think it was Call of Duty. Um,
Hmm.
back. This was at least 5 years ago when kind of it was a big marketing push, and they had a new version that was all new, decked out, and this new video technology that enabled high res kind of video. And I remember watching the first time that he was playing, and then other people would show up on the screen. These are other gamers that they ended up in the same game. It was a live game playing against each other. And the wheels were turning. I'm like, wow, the fact that this is possible. Obviously the bandwidth is probably the biggest thing. I We learned
Yep.
this the hard way when I was in the music streaming business back in the mid 2000s with Music Now. We had a music service, but the bandwidth wasn't there to actually support the level of streaming that would give you market share and product market fit and all that fun stuff. But 5 years ago, most people were already on a high enough broadband connection that you could jump on a live game, and it was a little stuttery here and there, but uh, that was a definitely one of those moments where I thought, man, this is going to be something that is just wildly successful. And I think, you know, I haven't followed so closely with esports, but from what I've heard in the rumblings of, Twitch and all of these other, things that are happening on YouTube, and like being able to watch these games, um, it's it sounds like it's really just a rocket ship.
Yep,
So
I think there's no. I don't know exactly how fast or how big, but I do think you're going to see, like I said, collegiate esports are going to rival collegiate, college basketball, college football.
wow. So with game gym, it sounds like there's a in-person um, concept mixed with the gaming aspect. Is that right?
Yes, yes, for sure. Before the pandemic, one of our most successful product lines was the summer camps, in-person summer camps,
Okay.
and we developed. Josh really developed a program where in the mornings you'd have education and exercise, stretching, and different physical activities and information. And then in the afternoons, we do what we call training and gaming, and that's the certified coaches doing drills ahead of time, just like a soccer practice where you practice penalty kicks or corner kicks or passing drills. You do drills to get better at the game. Then you play the game with the certified coach, watching and providing feedback afterwards. So a structured environment, much more like a dojo or an AAU team compared to just free form gameplay,
Mhm.
and also obviously bonding among the kids. So summer camps were, and we were hopeful in April of 2020, right before the pandemic, that we were going to have a great summer camp season and expand the summer camps from what had been a very successful 2019. Of course, the pandemic dealt us a curveball like everybody else. We were lucky in that we were able to pivot in a couple of different ways. The first thing we did was we started doing spring break and weekend camps online, and we learned very quickly that although it's not perfect, it doesn't replace in person for a variety of reasons, that you can still develop that sense of community and that sense of the kids getting better and having a good time and learning, and growing as people as well as growing as gamers. And so we continued that over the summer, 100% virtual last summer, 10 weeks of virtual camp, and we've done selected camps throughout the year, long weekends and over Christmas break and over spring break, and then we're doing virtual camps again all of this summer. The beauty of that is that people can be anywhere as long as you
Right.
account for the time difference. And we've got kids from California and Arizona. We've got a kid signed up this summer from Ireland. They're in lockdown, and Canada, is in lockdown right now, and their kids are we've got kids that are participating in our summer camps. When things open up again, it'll be a combination of
Yeah.
in-person summer camps for the local DC area, and then
I see.
also the option for either a hybrid or online camps for kids from other parts of the country. And we'll see, and parts of the world. We'll see how successful that is. I think that in person is always going to be better. And the same thing for our collegiate conference and our district esports league, which we also launched this year, which is for gamers of all ages in the DC metro area. It's all online now. Long term, I expect that most of the competitions will stay online, but maybe once a week, some key matchups, some key rivalries in the collegiate conference will happen live, and then the championships will happen live. We are very lucky to have the support of Events DC and Neil Johnson, who's director of esports for Events DC. They're an arm of the whole Washington D.C. area convention and visitors bureau and mechanism, machinery, if you will. And Neil's job is to grow esports, within the D.C. metro area. And they're a co-founder of the Mid Atlantic Esports Conference with us. They are the lead sponsor of our district esports league. They are the lead sponsor of our 3 online charity events. At the end of each season, we do an online event where we have education and entertainment sessions in the afternoons and competitions in the evenings. And we've raised, we had 2 of those events last year, and we raised more than $17,000 for Children's National Hospital Extra Life Foundation. So we believe very much in giving back to the community, supporting this metro area that we're in, and looking to the future, maybe grow to a second or third metro area where there's a similar appetite for the programs that we offer. But that was a
Right.
long answer to your short question. Is right now it's all virtual. Down the road it will be a combination. We'll continue to offer some virtual programs, and we'll offer quite a few in-person programs.
And for now, the in-person would be in the DC area.
Yes.
Yeah. So, I was thinking as you're talking about I'm thinking about the concept of game gym and the fact that what you're doing is leaning into the idea that, the gaming is such a big thing with so many kids at all ages. I mean, they're starting pretty young, right? In this gaming world. Um, if they can get their hands on an iPad at 3 or 4 years old, they're doing something. Um, and there were some, a lot of stories, a lot of press around the risks of the over gaming, that has taken place. And I'm at the age where I was just talking about this the other day with my wife about we were at the very beginning of the whole gaming thing, playing Mario Brothers and Pitfall, in the Atari games. But I remember sitting there for hours because I was just mesmerized by video games when I was 11 or 12. Um, and with such the technology the way it is now, and so they're so realistic and so engaging, kids are spending 24 hours, they're not even sleeping and they're playing through the night. What's the, and obviously that's what Game Gym is there for, is to help manage that. What, um, what can you say about that with, um, the way that Game Gym is designed to help these kids with this sort of thing?
Yeah, well, obviously, as a father of two teenage boys, I think that they game too much. I still think they game too much, even though I'm in the industry.
Yeah,
We believe in balance. We believe in a healthy approach to gaming. Any of our structured programs, the day camps and the sleepaway camps that we're planning when things get back to normal. There's always a balance and a specific limit, on the amount of screen time. I think something we all have to face is that all of us, young and old, spend way too much time in front of screens, whether it's
yeah,
TV, phone, whether it's gaming, whether it's movies, whether it's social media. We all spend too much time in front of screens, and especially during this pandemic. To set video games and esports aside as one key category where there's too much, absolutely the kids go overboard, and there are kids that go overboard. And the idea is with Game Gym is, if you spend an afternoon with us, if your kid spends an afternoon with us, if your kid spends a week of summer camp with us, it's going to be a specific amount of time that is part of a structured schedule with structured coaching. And even the time spent gaming is going to be spent learning and getting better at the games and getting better at communication and
mhm,
teamwork and working with a coach. There are not too many parents that say, "God, I wish my kid would spend less time playing soccer." But some of these sports programs, especially the traveling teams, spend an awful lot of time playing baseball or soccer, and nobody says, well, maybe they should spend more time reading, or more time socializing. But I do think that balance is critical for all of us, and
yeah,
that is what we're supporting. But you're not going to be able to stop kids from going overboard with games or with anything else. Right now, esports is much more on the male side than the female side, but that both boys and girls spend a lot of time on social media, and that has been obviously documented in terms of some of the challenges and some of the real downsides to that. And circle back to what I said. Everybody is spending too much time on screens. We've all got to figure out what that balance is. We are absolutely committed to helping parents and kids and gamers of all ages figuring out what that balance is when it comes to esports in their lives.
yeah. Well, it's a really important topic, and it's a really important um, thing that you guys are doing there with Game Jam. I know that there was a while my son, he played a lot of travel sports, but he also played a lot of video games, and he was deep
Yep.
into was it Mines, what's that called, Minecraft,
Minecraft. Yep.
and then Fortnite. Um,
Yep.
and I thought Fortnite was going to be the end of regular sports for him because he was so into it. But uh, it's a pretty cool game, I have to say. Um, is that considered an esport, like a Fortnite?
I'm not sure if Fortnite is team based or not. If it's team based, it's definitely an esport. I think it's
Yeah,
fallen a little bit by the wayside, but it's definitely still big, and it's definitely still got significant fans.
Yeah,
It's I don't think it's part of the this generation, but my expertise there in terms of exactly which games are at the forefront is certainly not as deep as some other people. So I may be wrong about where it fits in the pecking order.
sure, sure. Well, I think it's fascinating too that it's evolved to the point where it's become this collegiate level thing and professional level. I had no idea that it was a part of Ohio State or part of any curriculum that that that's um, becoming something that you can actually get a scholarship for. Explain how that works a bit. You know?
Yeah, so 500 different colleges and universities currently offer scholarships for esports, full or partial. And the recruiting, they're still figuring it out. The reason I know all those stats about Ohio State is my son is the co-varsity coach of the League of Legends team at Ohio State, and pre-pandemic he had 5 partial scholarships to give out, and he was trying to figure out how do you recruit, how do you identify high school kids. At one level, it's easier because the rankings are all public. In other words, based on your performance and your team's performances, they release rankings. I think every quarter, and it's in real time. It moves and shifts in real time
Sure.
that you can see. So you can see where these players are at the high school level. That's one of the things that the schools at the Mid Atlantic Esports Conference have asked us for, and that's what we'll be delivering this fall is a combine, a high school combine, where kids at equal levels can compete against each other, and the schools that are part of our conference can watch that and
Yeah.
then recruit those kids, tell those kids about their schools. One of the other things that the schools in the conference, have told us is they want to host our summer camps when we get back in person. Because
Yeah.
there you've got middle school and high school kids coming to a George Mason or a George Washington or a Shenandoah University, and spending time in their esports facilities, seeing the campus, seeing the esports facilities, and having an affinity there, fond memories of time spent on that college campus. So, that all of that tells me that it definitely has not been solved, and that framework is still being built. And so, at the high school level, there are leagues that are being formed. There are esports clubs all over. We are not currently involved in any high school leagues, either organizing them or participating, but we're actively tracking that path, and we want to again make sure that kids that are involved with us maximize their esports path, whatever that path is. But yeah, recruiting is still it's still sort of open territory. It's still a blue ocean, and we're helping to solve that problem in a very small way with the schools that are part of our Mid-Atlantic Esports Conference. In a big way, there are companies out there now that are starting to host these combines and develop more rigorous pathways, more rigorous evaluation tools, and more clear pathways for kids that are that are interested in this. The other
Right.
thing the other thing we're doing on the tail end of that is we're working with the Fairfax County Economic Development Authority, and they are producing a job fair as part of our Spring Summit charity event in May. In Fairfax County, Virginia, there are 90,000 available tech jobs, many of which are entry level and all of which are well paid. And there's just a glut there that they're unable to fill. And so the Fairfax County Economic Development Authority, is working with us because they believe that, gamers in college have the potential to be good IT workers when they graduate. And, it's not a perfect fit for everybody, but we agree
Yeah.
it's absolutely a good transition. These kids are familiar with computers, of course, and many of them are familiar with coding or the rudiments of coding, depending on what classes they've taken. So, that's the other side of this coin, is helping them get to college where esports is a part of their college experience and part of them getting to college and maybe even a scholarship. And then
Right.
beyond that, helping them get that first job, and esports being a part of helping them get that first job. And so that, for us, we feel like that's a win, all around for the schools in our conference and for the employees, the employers, and for obviously the graduating seniors, the kids. So we're
Yeah,
excited
because they're
about that. And that,
developing a lot of those skills that they're going to need for the workforce. Strategy, communication. All of the basics are
teamwork,
probably
absolutely.
teamwork are probably worked on more so in the gaming world than it is in school in a lot of cases,
Yep,
right?
absolutely. Yeah, I
Yeah,
see that all the time. I see, like I said, when my boys are playing, their headsets are on, they're talking, they're texting. There is active communication. This is a team of 5 or 6 that are
yeah,
working together on a specific goal and using the tools that they have and the skills that each of those 5 players have on the team to achieve a common goal. That's, that there's certainly group projects in college academics and in high school academics, but this is real world, and that learning how to deal with people in that way, taking advantages of skills and working together, and recognizing what another team player can bring to the table. I think all of that is critical
yeah,
and really valuable. And that's, for me, that was a big part of what turned the corner. My older son launched a long-term campaign to convince us, that this was not just wasted time, and he did. He was successful in convincing us, and then going to visit Ohio State and seeing the investment that they made and how
yeah,
seriously they were taking it. That to me, that's when the light bulb went on for me,
right.
and I turned the corner in terms of esports and the value that it can deliver.
And the gamification too of everyday life is happening. So I mean, just collecting, bonus, anything that has to do with doing things to achieve a new level at something. If fitness is now gamified with the fitness strap, where you have a leaderboard and who's
Yep.
burning the most MEPS, right? Um, the more people you have that can understand what gamification is all about, that can be applied in completely different context, but in a way that can advance, that particular thing. Um, and I think that's probably another benefit that these kids are going to be able to bring, is that they just inherently understand the gamification of how things can work better, or
Yep.
how they can apply gamification to improve the process of something by rewards. Simply, as a simple example.
Yep,
Um,
I agree 100%. I think there are tons of pivots. There's tons of paths that these kids can take to leverage and make use of what they've learned as gamers in the
yeah,
real world, in the corporate world, in the job world, in the startup world, for sure, and in the game of life.
yeah, definitely. So this Evan, this has been awesome and very informative. I'm so glad we got to connect on this. Um, One last question for you. So with Game Jam, you're talking about the stuff in the DC area. Any plans on perhaps expanding the footprint of what, like the summer camp locations, like franchising ideas or whatever, that kind of thing?
So we've definitely started thinking about city number 2, and what opportunities might be out there. And I think we've sort of crystallized what the key ingredients are for success. I think we've clearly proven the concept here in DC, of what we've built here, and I think that it's a short list of key ingredients that we need in that second and third city, and we're certainly beginning to think about that, but it's very, very early days at this point. But certainly, yes, the plan, I can say definitely the plan is to try this again in another city sometime soon.
Okay. Because it does seem like the kind of concept that you could test out very, with somewhat low overhead. You can get a place to pull in to get some some gaming gear together, and you find a place to actually host, um, an afternoon session, kind of like a learning center, like the Sylvan Learning Centers, to to be able to test different areas without a lot of investment.
Hmm.
It's just such an interesting business model that and and such a growth area. It's amazing what's possible there. Yeah.
I'm very excited about it. I think we've just started to scratch the surface, and once we've the pandemic has allowed us to pivot in some ways and given us some new opportunities that we weren't necessarily thinking about. I feel very lucky in that way that we were able to make some adjustments, and once things open up again, I think we can go back, especially in-person summer camps is obviously a key revenue stream for us. But yeah, I think it's easy. As I said, we're certainly going to be launching in another city sometime soon.
All right. Sounds good. Okay, Evan. Well, again, I appreciate your time here. It's great to connect. I'm going to be tracking what you guys are doing at Game Jam. Maybe we can have a follow-up conversation in a couple of months, and see how things are going.
That would be great, Mike. I really appreciate your time. It's great to talk to you. Great questions, and I'm looking forward to keeping in touch.
Thank you. Likewise, Evan.
All right, talk to you soon. Bye
Thank
bye.
you. Talk to you. Bye-bye.